G'day, I'm Pete, the Aussie Bush Cop. In 2012 I retired from the New South Wales Police Force and moved to King Island to become a homesteader, and I'd like to tell you some of my stories. G'day everyone, thanks so much for joining me again. I have a number of stories for you today. The first one was there's an offence in New South Wales called malicious damage. And ordinarily that might be, say for vandalism, maybe graffitiing someone's wall. But this one was a bit different. And so we got called to this particular village, and where a man had drawn or painted a pedestrian crossing right near his house on the road. And the backstory to it was that this man believed that there was a school in this village, and there was the children that attended the school needed a pedestrian crossing to cross the road safely. He'd approached the council or whatever body it was, and they'd declined and said, no, it's not necessary. And I might add, this is a really small village and a pretty quiet road in a small village. So I think I would concur with the council. But what this man had done was to get out, he actually did a pretty good job. He must have had some sort of form work or some sort of board to put on the road, because he used spray paint. Oh, I don't know, maybe it was spray paint or some sort of paint, white paint. And he did a pretty good job of drawing or painting this pedestrian crossing across the road. And he's not allowed to do that. He formally got told not to do it. So he was arrested. I don't think we actually took him into custody, but we charged him with malicious damage. And he pled not guilty to it, which of course he's entitled to do. And so it was set aside for a hearing. And I remember, when they have a day when the hearings are on, there's often quite a number of hearings in a day. And ours was the very last one. And the magistrate, there was a lunch adjournment, and the magistrate actually asked what the issue was. Like, why was this person pleading not guilty to it? And so over the lunch break, I spoke to the prosecutor, and I told him what the issue was. And because the accused had said to me, he said, Peter, I didn't do it maliciously. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. So then when after the lunch adjournment, we went back into court, and the magistrate gave out a word-perfect definition of what malicious means in the Crimes Act. And so it was rather lengthy, and he trotted that out to the accused, and then said to the accused, do you still wish to proceed with a not guilty plea? And this because I felt sort of a bit sorry for him, and I think he might have broke down a little bit, and he said, oh, well, I'll just have to plead guilty because I'm not going to win it knowing that's the definition of malicious. Anyway, so we, in the end, a very late plea of guilty, and I don't think there was there was no monetary fine, but he was responsible to the council, had to clean it up. Whatever they had to do to get rid of it, because they couldn't leave it there. And so he was responsible for maybe a few $100s for the council to spray over his nice little bit of work of doing his pedestrian crossing. The next one sort of relates to just after I'd retired from the police, and my wife and I were planning on moving down here to King Island, and we approached a company that was in the business of putting up sheds. And so this went to see this company up in New South Wales that was in a position maybe to build a shed for us down on a bit of land we had on King Island. I went into this man's office, and he looked at me, and he when he knew my name, and he didn't seem to be very happy with me. And he went and got a business card. He went out of the office and came back with a business card. It was one of my business cards, and he put it on the table. He said, he said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I said, "No, mate, I don't remember you." And then he told me that why he wasn't very happy with me is that one time I was doing an audit of firearm owners, and I went to this man's place of business, to his home, and he, the usual question was, "Mate, can you show me your licence?" And so he said to me, "Mate, I haven't got one." Oh, man, that's instantly a problem. That's a criminal matter. Because once you don't have a firearm licence, all your firearms are then deemed unregistered. And this bloke had a lot of firearms, shotguns in particular, because he was into skeet shooting or trap shooting. And he had that many. I actually had to get another truck there, another vehicle there to put everything in to take it away. And there was the reason why his licence he'd become unlicensed, it was just a clerical error, not on his behalf. He'd misplaced the letter telling him about, you got to renew your licence. And, it was an honest mistake. So when I went back to the station, I went and found the licensing sergeant, and I said to him, "Look, Sarge, this bloke's just made an honest mistake." I said, "I don't think it's in the interest of justice for me to charge him. Because if I did that, he'd certainly be convicted, and he would lose his ability to have those firearms for a long time." And so the sergeant agreed with me, and I decided to, I had to keep the firearms. And I said to this bloke, "Mate, you just go and get your licence reissued to you, and I think that everything's going to be okay. When you've got your licence back, we can then give back your firearms, and I'll just give you a warning, use my discretion and just give you a warning about it." And that's what happened. So when this bloke wasn't very happy with me, I had to remind him of actually what happened, and that sort of turned. In the end, I didn't do any business with him. Didn't turn, not because of any other reason, that it just wasn't practical. But anyway, I looked after him. I had to remind him because I didn't want him to think that I'd been nasty to him without any reason. Anyway, the next story was happened. There was I'll say a government vehicle, a utility, had rolled over or turned on its side on a major highway. And it was between Young and Cootamundra. It was about midway between those two towns. And so we went down there because if it's going to need a tow truck, it needs police attention. And so this bloke, the driver of the vehicle, was in a bit of a quandary about where the tow truck was going to come from, because he said there was a protocol for where the tow truck comes from. And I was getting quite frustrated because the day was wearing on, was getting towards not dark, but darkness wasn't getting too far away. The road, there was light rain falling, the traffic was increasing on the road, and he didn't seem to understand how dangerous it was to have a utility on its side in the middle of a highway. And I could see causing another accident, another crash. So when he told me I forget whether the tow truck was coming from Young or was coming from Cootamundra, but then he came to me and said, "Oh no, according to the protocol, we had to cancel that one. It's got to come from the other town." I'd had enough, and so I had a four-wheel drive vehicle with a winch on it, without any permission or whatever from him. I just hooked up the grappling hook, and I just dragged his vehicle off the road. It wasn't pretty, but it was going to stop another accident. And I could see the very surprised look on his face. And anyway, that's just what had to happen. The final story today was a bit scary. We'd taken a man into custody for having a knife in a hotel, and the barmaid told him to leave. She didn't want him there anymore. So he took out a knife and he stirred his beer in a very intimidating sort of a way. He stirred his beer with this knife he took out of his pocket. So of course that was even worse. So we were called and we went down there and we found this bloke out in a back lane. We took him into custody. And we put him into the dock, and the dock's like a bulletproof box, and shut the door. And I was in there, and then there was a couple of other police in the charge room, and then this bloke stood up, the one in the dock, and he started to, I could see he had his back to us, and he was doing something really, really odd. I couldn't see what it was. And the other two police were busy talking. They didn't take any notice of it. And then I walked up to him, and he was actually trying to pull his veins out at his wrist area here. He's trying to pull his veins out with his other fingers because he was terrified of being in custody and had a particular issue with claustrophobia. So, of course, we quickly averted any further attempts at pulling his veins out with his fingers, and then from that point on just left the dock door open. But the only thing I can say, and I think I might have suggested to him, mate, if you're going to commit crime, or you might end up in jail, it's not a good thing to have claustrophobia. Anyway, that's today's stories. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.